Unexpected spiritual evolution, the 5 signs. There is a moment in life when you look in the mirror and recognize the face, but feel that the person behind those eyes has completely changed. It wasn't a dramatic event, there was no divine revelation or a moment of sudden enlightenment. It was something subtler, deeper, as if your soul had grown overnight and, by morning, your old clothes simply no longer fit. If you have been feeling this strange sensation of becoming someone different, that your priorities have shifted without you noticing, that the things that once mattered now seem empty, then you may be going through an unexpected spiritual evolution. I am going to share with you 5 unmistakable signs that this transformation is happening in your life right now, and at the end, I will explain how to embrace this change without losing yourself in the process. Prepare yourself. Because what you are about to discover may finally explain that restlessness you feel deep within your chest. 1. The end of automatic reactivity. The first sign is perhaps the most disturbing and yet liberating. You notice that your automatic reactions are decreasing while your capacity for reflection expands like never before. You know that immediate urge to strike back when someone irritates you, to justify your every action, or to explode when things don't go as planned. That reactive energy begins to dissolve, and in its place, something completely new emerges, a conscious pause between the stimulus and your response. It is as if a sacred space has opened inside of you, a place where you can observe your emotions arising without being immediately dragged away by them. This change doesn't happen overnight. First, you notice it takes you a little longer to reply to messages that would have once made you furious. Then, you notice you can listen to criticism without feeling that desperate need to defend yourself. Gradually, you discover you can feel anger, sadness, or frustration without these emotions taking over your entire identity in that moment. This transformation is profound because it indicates you are developing what psychologists call mature emotional regulation. You aren't becoming cold or indifferent, you are becoming wise. The energy that was once wasted on impulsive reactions is now available for conscious choices. You begin to realize you can choose how to respond to the world, and that perception changes everything. When a colleague makes an unpleasant comment, instead of snapping back, you feel the emotion, acknowledge its validity, but choose a response that comes from your wisdom, not your wound. It's as if you discovered a superpower that was always there, waiting to be activated. 2. Silence as a sanctuary. The second sign is equally revealing. Silence stops being your enemy and becomes your greatest ally. If before you needed to fill every empty moment with music, conversations, television, or any kind of distraction, you now discover there is something deeply nourishing in silence. I'm not just talking about the absence of noise, but a specific type of inner stillness where you can simply be, without needing to do, produce, or consume constantly. This change usually begins subtly. You notice you can walk without headphones and actually enjoy the sounds around you. Or you notice you can spend a few minutes alone without feeling that familiar anxiety that used to push you toward your phone. Gradually, these moments of silence become precious, like small oases in the midst of daily chaos. It is in these empty spaces that your intuition begins to speak louder. Thoughts that once seemed confusing organize themselves naturally. Solutions to problems you've been brooding over appear spontaneously. You discover that your mind, when not constantly bombarded by external stimuli, has its own wisdom to guide you. Silence becomes the place where you meet yourself, without masks, without performances, without the need to be someone for anyone else. It is in this intimate encounter that spiritual evolution truly happens. You begin to set aside moments of the day just to be present with yourself, and these moments become as important as any appointment on your calendar. 3. From judgment to compassion. The third sign is perhaps the most transformative of all. You notice that your impulse to judge others is diminishing, while your capacity for compassion grows in an almost miraculous way. This shift is revolutionary because it directly affects how you relate to the world. Before, your mind functioned like a constant courtroom, classifying people, behaviors, and situations into rigid categories of right and wrong, good and bad. Now, you find that this need to judge is losing its grip, and in its place, a genuine curiosity about the human experience emerges. You begin to realize that every person carries a complex story, full of wounds, dreams, fears, and hopes that you cannot see on the surface. That person who cut you off in traffic might be rushing to the hospital. The colleague who seems arrogant might be masking a deep insecurity. The relative who always criticizes might be expressing their own pain in a distorted way. This perception doesn't make you naive or permissive toward destructive behavior, but it gives you a broader, more human perspective on people's motivations. You discover you can maintain healthy boundaries without needing to demonize those who cross them. You can disagree with someone without turning them into an enemy. You can protect yourself from toxic behavior without carrying hatred in your heart. This change reflects in how you speak about others, how you react to differences of opinion, and especially how you treat yourself. The compassion you develop for others naturally extends to your own failures and limitations. You stop punishing yourself so severely for past mistakes and start treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer a dear friend. 4. The internal compass. The fourth sign is a fundamental shift in the direction of your search. You realize you're looking for answers within yourself instead of constantly seeking validation and guidance from the external world. This transformation is deep because it represents a paradigm shift regarding where your wisdom and personal power reside. Before, you may have depended heavily on the opinions of others, social trends, external authorities, or ready-made formulas to make important decisions. Now, you discover that there is an internal voice, an intuition, a wisdom of your own that can guide you more authentically than any external advice. This doesn't mean you become arrogant or stop listening to others, but that you develop a more refined internal filter. You can hear different perspectives and consider various points of view, but the final decision passes through the sieve of your own inner wisdom. You begin to trust your instincts, your perceptions, and your deep values more. This change manifests in several practical ways. You may realize you no longer need constant approval from others to feel good about yourself. You might notice that your choices in career, relationships, and lifestyle are being guided more by what resonates with your essence than by what is socially expected. You may find you have less need to follow influencers, gurus, or self-help formulas because you are developing your own philosophy of life based on direct experience. This spiritual autonomy is liberating, but it can also be scary at first. Taking responsibility for your own spiritual journey means you can no longer blame others for your problems or wait for someone to save you. But it also means you have the power to create a life that is truly yours, aligned with your deepest values and your unique vision of the world. 5. Sensing the interconnected web. The fifth and final sign is perhaps the most mysterious. You begin to feel a deeper connection to something greater than yourself, whether you call it the universe, nature, divine energy, or simply the interconnected web of existence. This perception of interconnectedness isn't necessarily religious in the traditional sense, but it is deeply spiritual. You begin to feel that you are part of something much larger and more meaningful than your individual life. This connection can manifest in many ways. You might feel a greater reverence for nature, seeing yourself as part of the same system that produces the trees, the oceans, and the stars. You might develop a greater sensitivity to synchronicities, those moments when life seems to conspire to send you exactly the message or opportunity you need. You may feel an expanded compassion that extends not only to your loved ones but to all living beings. This perception of fundamental unity changes how you live day to day. Your decisions begin to take into account not only your personal well-being but the impact you have on the world around you. You may become more environmentally conscious, more generous with your time and resources, and more interested in contributing to causes that benefit the collective. You discover that caring for others and the planet is not a sacrifice, but a natural extension of caring for yourself, because you realize that, at a fundamental level, there is no real separation between you and the rest of existence. This perception can bring moments of deep peace and gratitude, but it can also intensify your sensitivity to the suffering of the world. You may feel more affected by injustices, more touched by the pain of others, and more responsible for contributing to the collective healing. Embracing the transformation. Now that you know these 5 signs, it is important to understand that an unexpected spiritual evolution is not always a smooth, linear process. There may be moments of confusion, where you feel lost between who you were and who you are becoming. There may be internal resistance, where part of you wants to go back to the old, simpler way of living. There may be moments of loneliness, where you feel that the people around you do not understand the changes you are going through. All of this is completely normal and part of the process. The key is to be patient and gentle with yourself during this transformation. Remember that you don't need to have all the answers immediately, you don't need to change everything in your life at once, and you don't need to become a perfect person overnight. Spiritual evolution is a gradual process of awakening to who you truly are, beneath all the layers of social conditioning, family expectations, and personal fears. It is a return to your most authentic essence, that which was always there but may have been obscured by the demands and distractions of modern life. If you recognized yourself in some or all of these signs, know that you are not alone on this journey. Millions of people around the world are going through similar processes of awakening and spiritual evolution. We live in a time of great change and transformation, and many people are being called to evolve into a more conscious and compassionate way of living. Your personal transformation is part of a larger collective transformation happening in humanity. Embrace this change with courage and curiosity. Trust the process, even when it seems uncertain or uncomfortable. Remember that all evolution involves leaving behind old ways of being that no longer serve you, and that always involves some discomfort. But on the other side of this transformation is a more authentic, wise, and compassionate version of yourself. I would love to know if you identified with any of these signs. Leave a comment sharing which one resonated with you the most, or tell us about other signs of spiritual evolution you have noticed in your own life. Your experience can help others going through the same process. If this video brought clarity to something you were feeling, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so you don't miss other content on personal growth and spirituality. And if you think this content might help someone you know, share it with them. Sometimes, knowing we are not alone in our journey of transformation makes all the difference. A like also helps me a lot to continue creating content like this. Thank you so much for watching this far, and remember, your spiritual evolution is a gift not only to you but to everyone who is lucky enough to live with the most authentic and awakened version of who you are becoming. Subtle signs of deep evolution. Now, I want to share with you some subtler but equally important signs that indicate you are going through a deep spiritual evolution. These are aspects that often go unnoticed but reveal significant transformations happening in the deeper layers of your being. A change in your relationship with time. One of the most fascinating signs of spiritual evolution is how our perception of time transforms. You may have noticed that you are living more in the present moment, without constant anxiety about the future or the heavy weight of the past. This doesn't mean you've become irresponsible or negligent with your commitments, but rather that you've developed a greater ability to be truly present in every experience. Many people report starting to notice synchronicities more frequently, those moments when everything seems to align perfectly, when you think of someone and they call you, or when an answer you were seeking appears unexpectedly. This happens because when we are more present and connected, we become more receptive to the signs and patterns that were always there, but that our restless minds couldn't perceive. You might also notice that your relationship with hurry has changed. Before, perhaps you lived in a constant rush, always feeling late or that there wasn't enough time. Now, even with the same responsibilities, you find a more natural rhythm, trusting that things happen at the right time. This isn't passivity, but a deeper understanding that forcing situations rarely leads to the best results. Transformation in relationships. Spiritual evolution inevitably transforms our relationships, and this can be both liberating and challenging. You may have noticed that some relationships have become deeper and more authentic, while others have naturally drifted apart. This is no cause for guilt or sadness, but a natural reflection of your growth. As we evolve spiritually, we begin to value quality over quantity in our relationships. We prefer meaningful conversations over petty gossip. We seek connections based on shared values rather than just social convenience. This may mean you feel less inclined to participate in toxic dynamics, such as unnecessary competition, constant criticism, or interpersonal drama. A particularly significant change is how you handle conflict. Instead of reacting impulsively or holding on to grudges, you develop the ability to respond with more wisdom. This doesn't mean you've become passive or that you accept any behavior, but that you choose your battles with more discernment and approach conflicts more constructively. You may also notice you've become a better listener. Before, perhaps you listened only to respond, always preparing your next line while the other person was speaking. Now, you listen to truly understand, offering your full presence as a gift to whoever is sharing something with you. A new perspective on challenges. One of the most powerful signs of spiritual evolution is how you start to view life's challenges. Instead of seeing every difficulty as a problem to be avoided or an injustice to be fought, you begin to recognize the potential for growth present in every challenging situation. The path of conscious growth. This doesn't mean you've become a masochist or that you're actively seeking suffering, but rather that you've developed a broader perspective on difficult experiences. You understand that, just as muscles grow through resistance, our soul grows stronger through the challenges we face with awareness and courage. When something doesn't go as planned, instead of letting yourself be swept away by frustration or victimhood, you ask yourself, what is this situation trying to teach me, or how can I grow through this experience? This shift in perspective completely transforms how you navigate the inevitable hardships of human life. You may also have noticed that your tolerance for uncertainty has significantly increased. Before, perhaps you felt anxious or stressed when you didn't have total control over a situation. Now, you can remain more centered even in the midst of ambiguity, trusting that things will unfold exactly as they need to. The awakening of creativity and intuition. Spiritual evolution often comes hand in hand with a flowering of creativity and a stronger connection to intuition. You may have discovered new artistic talents, felt an urge to write, paint, dance, or express yourself in ways you never considered before. This happens because, as we remove layers of conditioning and external expectations, we get in touch with the most authentic and creative aspects of our being. Your intuition also becomes sharper and more reliable. You begin to recognize the difference between the voice of anxiety, which is usually loud and urgent, and the voice of intuition, which is subtler but deeply wise. It might be that gut feeling warning you about a situation, or that silent knowing that arises without logical explanation, yet proves right time and time again. Many people find they start having more vivid and meaningful dreams, or that they develop a stronger connection with symbols and metaphors. This reflects a greater openness to the nonlinear aspects of the human experience, a willingness to receive guidance through channels beyond the rational mind. Transformation in the relationship with nature. An often underestimated sign of spiritual evolution is a deeper connection to nature. You may have noticed you feel more drawn to spend time outdoors, that a walk in the woods or moments staring at the ocean bring a sense of peace and clarity you once sought in other activities. This connection goes beyond simply appreciating beautiful landscapes. It is a recognition that we are part of something greater, interconnected with all living beings and natural cycles. You may begin to notice parallels between the rhythms of nature and the rhythms of your own life, finding wisdom in the seasons, the lunar cycles, and the growth of plants. Some people develop a greater sensitivity to the energy of places, feeling naturally drawn to environments that nourish their soul and uncomfortable in spaces with denser or more chaotic energies. This is not imagination, it is an increased openness to the energetic dimension of experience. Shift in values and priorities. As we evolve spiritually, our values and priorities naturally transform. Things that once seemed extremely important may lose their relevance, while aspects of life you perhaps neglected gain new significance. You may notice that the pursuit of status, external recognition, or material accumulation loses its appeal. This doesn't mean you've become careless with your financial or professional responsibilities, but rather that these things have taken their proper place, as means to a full life. Not ends in themselves. Conversely, you may find that you value quality time with loved ones more, moments of silence and reflection, and experiences that nourish your soul instead of just impressing others. You might choose a job that aligns better with your values, or dedicate more energy to causes that truly matter to you. This shift in values also reflects in how you spend your time and energy. You become more selective, more conscious of where you invest your internal resources. Activities that once felt mandatory may be questioned. Does this truly serve my growth, or am I doing it out of habit? Development of genuine compassion. One of the most beautiful fruits of spiritual evolution is the development of a genuine and expansive compassion. This goes far beyond just being nice. It is a deep understanding that we are all doing the best we can with the resources and awareness we have available in the moment. You may notice you've become less prone to judge others, even when you disagree with their actions. Instead of seeing people as good or bad, you start to see complex human beings, each carrying their own wounds and fears. This doesn't mean you accept any behavior, but rather that you can keep your heart open even in difficult situations. This compassion also extends to yourself. Many people discover that they develop a kinder and more encouraging internal voice. Harsh self-criticism gives way to a nourishing self-compassion. You learn to treat your own mistakes with the same kindness you would offer a dear friend. Integration and balance. A crucial aspect of mature spiritual evolution is integration, the ability to live your spirituality in a practical way in the everyday world. You don't need to isolate yourself on a mountain to be spiritual. Instead, you find the sacred in the ordinary, bringing awareness to simple activities like working or talking with a neighbor. You develop the ability to move fluidly between different aspects of life, being pragmatic when necessary, yet maintaining a connection to deeper dimensions. You can be fully present in a business meeting and equally present in a meditation, recognizing that both are expressions of a conscious life. Remember that spiritual evolution is not a final destination, but an ongoing process. Each person experiences this uniquely, at their own pace. There is no finish line. There are always new layers of understanding and new aspects of your being to explore. What makes this journey even more fascinating is how it unfolds in unexpected ways. Often, the greatest leaps happen in mundane situations, in a family argument or a crisis at work. These non-spiritual challenges often catalyze the deepest transformations. For example, caring for a sick relative might teach you more about unconditional compassion than years of meditation. An unexpected layoff might reveal reserves of inner strength you didn't know you possessed. These moments become teachers in disguise. As your awareness expands, you develop a refined perception of the energy patterns around you. You notice how different environments and people affect your internal state. You realize that certain conversations drain you while others renew you. This increased sensitivity is a valuable navigational tool. You learn to make conscious choices about your energy, setting clearer boundaries or seeking environments that nourish your soul. Over time, you develop spiritual intelligence, the ability to perceive subtle dimensions and respond to them with wisdom. The wisdom of cycles and presence. This spiritual intelligence also manifests as a deeper understanding of life's natural cycles. You begin to recognize that, just as nature has seasons, your spiritual journey also has natural rhythms. There are periods of rapid growth and expansion, followed by phases of integration and apparent dormancy. There are moments of crystal clarity and periods of necessary confusion that precede new insights. Accepting these natural cycles brings a profound peace. You stop fighting against the more difficult periods and learn to trust the larger process that is unfolding. When you go through a dark night of the soul, you know it is a temporary phase of purification and transformation, not a sign that you are regressing in your evolution. One of the most notable changes many people experience is a shift in their relationship with time. In earlier stages of development, we tend to live constantly in the future, always working toward some goal, always waiting for happiness to arrive when certain conditions are met. Or we get stuck in the past, ruminating on mistakes or glorifying the good old days. As you evolve spiritually, you develop a greater capacity to inhabit the present. This doesn't mean you stop planning for the future or learning from the past, but that you recognize that real life happens now, in this moment. You discover that the joy, peace, and love you sought in the future are already available in the present, waiting only for your attention. Emotions as messengers. This expanded presence also transforms your relationship with difficult emotions. Instead of trying to avoid or suppress feelings like anger, sadness, or fear, you learn to welcome them as temporary visitors who bring important information. You develop the ability to feel deeply without being overwhelmed by the feelings, to be compassionate with yourself during emotionally challenging periods. For example, when you feel anger, instead of judging it as unspiritual or trying to repress it, you can investigate with curiosity. What is this anger trying to show me? What boundary was crossed? What value of mine is being disrespected? Anger becomes an ally in protecting your integrity, not an enemy to be defeated. Similarly, sadness is no longer seen as something to be avoided, but as a natural response to loss and change. You learn that allowing yourself to feel sadness completely, without resistance, often leads to an opening of the heart and a renewed capacity to love. Honoring the journey of others. This emotional acceptance extends to others as well. You stop trying to fix people or save them from their own journeys. You recognize that each person has their own path of growth, their own lessons to learn. This doesn't mean you become indifferent to the suffering of others, but that you offer support in a way that honors the autonomy and innate wisdom of each person. You can be present for someone in pain without trying to take the pain away. You can offer advice when asked, but without being attached to the results. You understand that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is simply witness someone's experience without trying to change it. As these qualities develop, you naturally begin to radiate a quality of presence that positively affects those around you. It's not something you do consciously, but something that emerges naturally from your more integrated state of being. People may comment that they feel calmer in your presence, or that you have a soothing effect. Spiritual resilience and authenticity. It is important to understand that this evolution does not make you perfect or immune to life's challenges. You still experience difficulties, you still make mistakes, and you still have moments of doubt or confusion. The difference is that you develop a broader perspective that can accommodate these experiences without being defined by them. When you make a mistake, you can acknowledge it, learn from it, and move on without carrying unnecessary guilt. When you face a challenge, you can feel it fully while maintaining the trust that you possess the internal resources to navigate through it. You develop what we could call spiritual resilience, the ability to bend without breaking, to be affected by life without being dominated by it. This resilience comes from a deep understanding of your essential nature. You recognize that, although your external circumstances may change, there is something in you that remains constant, an essence that cannot be touched by the fluctuations of life. This discovery brings an inner security that does not depend on external conditions. Over time, you begin to see that this inner security is reflected in the quality of your decisions. Instead of making choices based on fear, the need for approval, or a desperate search for external safety, your decisions emerge from a place of clarity and authenticity. You ask yourself not just, "What will others think?" or "What will bring me the most advantage?" but "What is aligned with who I truly am?" The beauty of the ordinary. This shift in decision-making might be subtle at first, but its effects are profound. You may choose a job that resonates with your values, even if it pays less. You may choose relationships based on genuine connection rather than convenience or status. You may choose to speak your truth even when it is uncomfortable. These choices, made from a place of inner integrity, tend to create a more fulfilling and meaningful life. As you develop spiritually, you find that the present moment is where your choices have power. This presence also transforms your experience of everyday activities. Simple things like walking, eating, or talking to a friend can become rich and satisfying experiences. You are no longer constantly searching for the next experience to feel complete, you find completeness in what is happening now. One of the deepest developments is the expansion of your capacity for compassion. Initially, you may have started this journey focused on your own well-being. But as you become more established in your own inner peace, you naturally develop a genuine concern for the well-being of others. This compassion is not forced, it arises organically from a recognition of our fundamental interconnection. You begin to see that the suffering of others is not separate from your own. This perspective may lead you to acts of service as a natural expression of who you have become. You also develop a deeper appreciation for the mystery of existence. The small wonders of life, a sunrise, the laughter of a child, the complexity of a flower, can evoke a sense of awe and gratitude. You become more sensitive to the sacred dimension of ordinary life. This expanded sensitivity can also fuel your creativity, as you find new channels to express your essential nature. A non-linear path. It is important to recognize that this journey is not linear. There will be periods of accelerated growth and periods of apparent stagnation. There will be moments of deep clarity and moments of confusion. The key is to develop patience and compassion for yourself through these fluctuations. Recognize that spiritual growth is not an achievement you reach once and then keep forever, but rather a continuous process of awakening, of remembering and returning repeatedly to your true nature.